Los Angeles, a sprawling metropolis nestled amidst a tapestry of canyons and chaparral-covered hills, has always had a complex relationship with fire. The city's growth has intertwined with fire's presence, pushing development into fire-prone areas. Now, as the planet warms, this delicate balance is tipping, and Los Angeles faces an increasingly volatile fire regime. Wildfires, once a seasonal threat, are becoming more frequent, intense, and unpredictable. Climate change, driven by human activities, is altering the very fabric of the environment, making wildfires a year-round menace. Rising temperatures, brought about by the increasing concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, are exacerbating drought conditions. This creates a tinderbox-like environment where vegetation dries out and becomes highly flammable. The iconic Santa Ana winds, already known for their role in fanning flames, are also being influenced by climate change, becoming more erratic and intense. These factors, coupled with a legacy of human actions such as land management practices and accidental ignitions, are creating a perfect storm for wildfire disasters in Los Angeles. The city stands at a critical juncture, where understanding the interplay between climate change and wildfires is paramount to protecting its future. The consequences of inaction are dire, with implications not only for the environment but also for the health, safety and economic well-being of Angelenos. The time for decisive action is now to mitigate the impacts of climate change and build a more resilient Los Angeles, capable of withstanding the growing threat of wildfires. The past few years have been etched in the memory of Angelenos as a time of unprecedented wildfires. The Getty Fire, the Saddleridge Fire, the Bobcat Fire and the Palisades Fire. Each blaze carved its own path of destruction, leaving behind a trail of charred landscapes and displaced lives. These fires serve as stark reminders of the city's vulnerability in the face of a changing climate. The Getty Fire, ignited by a downed power line, ripped through the hillsides of Brentwood in 2019, forcing thousands to evacuate their homes. The Saddleridge Fire, sparked by electrical equipment, scorched its way through the San Fernando Valley in 2019, claiming lives and destroying homes. The Bobcat Fire, the second largest fire in Los Angeles County history, raged for months in 2020, fueled by dry vegetation and driven by strong winds, consuming over 115,000 acres. The Palisades Fire, also ignited by human activity, burned for weeks in 2021, threatening homes and blanketing the city in a thick layer of smoke. Each of these fires had its own unique characteristics and impacts, but they all shared a common thread. They were exacerbated by climate change. The increasing frequency and intensity of these fires underscore the urgent need to adapt and build resilience in the face of a warming world. To understand the role of climate change in fueling wildfires, we must first delve into the basic ingredients of a wildfire. Three key elements are needed: fuel, oxygen, and heat. In the context of Los Angeles, the fuel comes in the form of abundant dry vegetation, primarily chaparral, which thrives in the region's Mediterranean climate. Oxygen is readily available in the atmosphere. Heat, the ignition source, can come from natural sources like lightning strikes, but increasingly it's human activities, whether accidental or intentional, that spark these infernos. Climate change acts as an accelerant, intensifying each of these elements. Rising temperatures driven by the greenhouse effect lead to increased evaporation, drying out vegetation and turning it into highly flammable fuel. Drought conditions, exacerbated by climate change, further amplify this effect, creating a landscape primed for ignition. The Santa Ana winds, notorious for their role in fanning wildfires, are also being impacted by climate change, becoming more erratic and intense, driving flames with greater speed and unpredictability. This confluence of factors, abundant fuel, readily available oxygen, and increased heat sources, creates a dangerous feedback loop. As temperatures continue to rise and drought conditions worsen, wildfires are becoming more frequent, intense, and difficult to control. The immediate impact of wildfires, the charred landscapes and destroyed homes, are only the tip of the iceberg. These blazes trigger a cascade of consequences that reverberate through the environment, public health, the economy, and the social fabric of communities. The smoke and particulate matter released during wildfires pose significant health risks, particularly for vulnerable populations like children, the elderly, and those with respiratory conditions. Wildfires also exacerbate air pollution, contributing to smog and respiratory illnesses. The economic costs of wildfires are staggering, encompassing property damage, firefighting expenses, business interruption, and lost tourism revenue. The ecological damage is equally profound, as wildfires disrupt ecosystems, threaten biodiversity, and release massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, further contributing to climate change. The social and emotional toll of wildfires cannot be overlooked. The trauma of evacuation, the loss of homes and businesses, and the constant fear of future fires take a heavy toll on mental health and community well-being. These cascading impacts underscore the far-reaching consequences of wildfires, extending far beyond the immediate burn areas. Section 5, Fighting Fire with Strategy, a multi-pronged approach. Addressing the wildfire crisis in Los Angeles requires a multifaceted approach that integrates prevention, preparedness, suppression, and recovery efforts. This involves a combination of strategies aimed at reducing wildfire risk, enhancing community resilience, and addressing the root causes of climate change. Improved forest management practices such as controlled burns and vegetation thinning can help reduce the amount of flammable material in forests, making them less susceptible to intense wildfires. Upgrading infrastructure, including burying power lines, retrofitting homes with fire-resistant materials, and creating defensible spaces around structures can help minimize fire risk and protect property. Community engagement and education are crucial for promoting fire-safe practices, such as clearing brush around homes and being prepared for evacuations. Ultimately, addressing the root causes of climate change is paramount. This involves transitioning away from fossil fuels, investing in renewable energy sources, improving energy efficiency, and promoting sustainable land use practices. By tackling climate change head-on, we can mitigate the factors that are intensifying wildfires and creating a more fire-prone environment. Section 6. The roadblocks to resilience, challenges in implementation. While the need for action is clear, implementing these solutions comes with its own set of challenges. Funding constraints, political roadblocks, and competing priorities often hinder the implementation of effective wildfire mitigation and adaptation measures. Funding for forest management, infrastructure upgrades, and community outreach programs is often inadequate, limiting the scope and effectiveness of these efforts. Political will is essential for enacting policies that promote renewable energy, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and encourage sustainable land use practices. However, opposition from vested interests and a lack of public awareness can stall progress. Balancing wildfire mitigation efforts with other pressing societal needs, such as affordable housing and economic development, can be challenging, particularly in a densely populated and resource-constrained city like Los Angeles. Overcoming these challenges requires a collaborative effort involving government agencies, private organizations, community groups, and individuals working together to prioritize wildfire resilience and address the underlying drivers of climate change. Section 7. The urgency of action, a call to protect our future. The consequences of inaction are stark. As temperatures continue to rise and drought conditions worsen, wildfires are projected to become even more frequent, intense and destructive, posing an existential threat to Los Angeles. The health, safety, and economic well-being of Angelinos are at stake. Delaying action will only exacerbate the problem, leading to more catastrophic fires, greater economic losses, and irreparable damage to the environment and human health. We are at a crossroads where the choices we make today will determine the fate of Los Angeles for generations to come. The time for complacency is over. The time for action is now. We must act decisively and collectively to address the wildfire crisis, both by implementing immediate mitigation and adaptation measures and by tackling the root causes of climate change. The future of Los Angeles, and indeed the planet, depends on it. Section 8. The weight of inaction, a future engulfed in flames. Imagine a Los Angeles perpetually shrouded in smoke, the air thick with the acrid smell of burning chaparral. Imagine a city where evacuation orders are commonplace, where homes are reduced to ash, and where the threat of fire casts a long shadow over everyday life. This is the future we face if we fail to act on climate change and the growing wildfire crisis. As temperatures continue to climb and drought conditions worsen, wildfires will become an ever-present threat, transforming the landscape and way of life in Los Angeles. The economic costs of firefighting, property damage, and lost productivity will skyrocket, straining already limited resources. The health impacts of wildfire smoke will intensify, leading to a surge in respiratory illnesses and other health problems. The ecological damage will be profound, with wildfires decimating wildlife populations, disrupting ecosystems, and releasing massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, further accelerating climate change. This is not a future we have to accept. By taking bold action now, we can avert the worst-case scenarios and create a more resilient and sustainable future for Los Angeles. Section 9. A collective responsibility towards a fire-resilient Los Angeles. Building a fire-resilient Los Angeles requires a collective effort, one that transcends political divides and brings together individuals, communities, businesses, and government agencies. It demands a fundamental shift in our relationship with the environment, one that acknowledges the interconnectedness of climate change, wildfires, and human actions. We must embrace a culture of preparedness, where individuals take responsibility for reducing fire risks around their homes, preparing for evacuations, and staying informed about wildfire threats. Communities must work together to develop fire adaptation plans, promote fire-safe practices, and support vulnerable populations. Businesses must adopt sustainable practices, reduce their carbon footprints, and invest in fire-resistant infrastructure. Government agencies must prioritize wildfire mitigation and adaptation efforts, provide adequate funding, and enact policies that address the root causes of climate change. The task ahead is daunting but not insurmountable. By embracing a spirit of collaboration, innovation, and unwavering commitment, we can build a fire-resilient Los Angeles, capable of withstanding the challenges of a changing climate and ensuring a safer, healthier, and more sustainable future for all.